everyone, welcome to Saving Vegas. Today I'm going to be digging into these 417Rs a little bit. I basically just want to get into the crossovers and check those out. He said he had some issues with the mid-range and he felt like it didn't quite sound like it should. And there's a lot going on in the crossovers of these 417Rs. There's 3 different adjustments that you have on the back, so there's potentiometers for each one of those. With a speaker as old as the 417R, you know, we're knocking on the door of 50 years or so, there's a good chance that those potentiometers just need to be cleaned up a little bit or possibly replaced if cleaning them isn't going to solve the issue. Knowing if they're working properly or not is sometimes kind of difficult to tell just by listening to them. Even though the speaker that they are controlling is operating properly, it can cause them to be a little bit quieter than they're supposed to be or not playing the proper frequencies that they should be. It all really kind of depends on how they're all hooked up into the signal path for whatever driver they're controlling. The main focus on this video is going to be those potentiometers, and basically we'll just go from there. Okay, so here we have, this is the crossover that I pulled out of the other speaker. As you can see, I'd already been kind of pulling some stuff apart. So this is out of the other one that I have pretty much pulled everything out of. All the drivers and everything have been pulled out because I do have to, if you can see here, the color difference, it's pretty faded and there's a little tear there. These need to be refoamed. So I've got the new foams here. And I did find some of the original tweeters, so I'm still looking for another one. But I did find the proper shorter throat tweeter without the phase plug in it. So that is actually in place now, and I gave it a bit of a test run and everything sounds okay, but there is going to be, and I know already just by listening to it, there is going to be some issues with the pots on these crossovers. They're not working properly. You can even just kind of tell by how they feel. But this is basically what we're looking into today. So this on the back, these are your pots here. So this one is going to control the mid-range. So look on the front, mid frequencies. So this guy does the mid, and this guy right here. So you can see they've got some resistors in line there too. And this is the green wire coming out. So if I remember correctly, what is this? This says horn attendant. Okay, so I believe this does the rear. And they've got a third one in here as well. And I kind of, like I said, I got some of these caps and stuff cut out of here, but this is gonna do your 2 front tweeters. This actually does adjust the both fronts. So this one basically just says high frequency above 3500 hertz. First things first, I'm going to, I already started dismantling. So as far as I know, these are all going to be a 16 ohm potentiometer, 15 or 16, I don't know. It's the first time I've kind of seen this. It says 15 ohms on that one there. Generally, they all kind of used a 16 ohm, 5 watt potentiometers. So what I want to do is check all of these. And it can be a little more difficult if they're all still kind of soldered into the rest of the crossover. Before I get into this, I'm going to just go through, now I've got 2 of the extras here. These were pulled out of a different Cerwin Vega speaker. I think these were a 29P, possibly. These are a 16 ohm, 5 watt potentiometer, which Cerwin Vega used quite a bit. So what I'm going to show you, so what you're going to have here, the way these are going to be wired up, the incoming, so your positive is going to come in. So your incoming signal path into either one of these, might be this one, but what I'm going to show you, you clip this, your leads, your multimeter, or whatever it is you're using, onto your 2 outsides. So we've got 16.2, and no matter which way I turn this, on here. It's you're gonna have your 16 ohm resistance across these two pins. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up to this guy and this guy. So when you guys are trying to figure out if you are wiring these in, so this is the way it's going to be mounted on this coming through, whatever, like, yeah. So this is the way it's going to be mounted, and then you turn it all the way down, which it is. You get your 16 ohm resistance. If you switch this over to this one, it's going to be the opposite, and there'll be no resistance. So if you're wiring this potentiometer in, and whatever incoming signal that you want to have the adjustment for the resistance, it needs to be going into this guy here. So this would be your incoming, and then this middle guy would be going out to whatever driver or whatever it is that you want to have your adjustable resistance. That being because I've got this turned all the way down. So when you think of it as a volume level, your volume's all the way down, all the way to the left. It's going to be the quietest because you got the most resistance on it. And then you turn it up all the way to the right and no resistance. So that's going to be the loudest, if you want to think of it that way. So what I'm checking here, I'm going to use this for I'm checking potentiometers, is when I'm turning this, I want a nice smooth, I want to see these numbers go up nice and slow as I'm turning it. I don't want to see them jumping all over the place or not moving at all, or there's all sorts of things that can go bad inside of these pots. So I'm going to go back. Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to go here. So I'm turned all the way down. So I'm going to start turning this slowly, and I'm going to watch the numbers, and I want to see them. I want to see this number start dropping nice and slowly. I don't want to see the numbers jump all over the place. So as I start turning it up, you can see the numbers, the resistance is dropping. No real big jumps or anything. So this is this one's pretty good still. So it's pretty easy testing these when they're not all hooked up in the crossover. So when they're all hooked in here, so take for instance, this is your pot for your mid. You can see, so this would be considered your middle, and these be your two outside on these. These are just a little different style. So with what I had on this one, you would think if I hooked onto here and here, I should get 15 or 16 ohms. But you're not going to, because they've got these joined here. So I'll just show you guys. Because I did this on the other one and I got 16 ohms. Do it on this one, I get 0.2. So I'm assuming this is turned wide open. Yes, it is. Okay, so this is turned be all the way to the right. So it's turned all the way up, so for no resistance. And the reason it's doing that is because you've got this joined here. So this one we can test in the crossover because there's nothing, yeah, we can't just check and see what it is, but I mean, we can by just turning it all the way up. And assuming that it's good, that's gonna be your numbers. Now let's turn it all the way up. I'm gonna slowly start turning this down, and I'm gonna be, same thing as I did with the other one, I'm gonna watch these numbers, and I wanna see those numbers climb nice and evenly and gradually. See, I got a little jump there. I don't know if you caught that. I jumped to 3. Didn't do it that time. So this one might need a little bit of attention. It's actually better than I thought it was gonna be. And I'm turning it really slowly. Just trying to get, see there we got a little jump to 10. See as it sits here, it's 10.2. So I'm gonna keep turning it down, and it should go higher, but I think it's gonna jump. Yeah, it went lower and then back up. So it's not too bad. oh, there's kind of a bad one. So I've turned it up even, I'm still turning it down, and then it dropped even more. So it's not perfect, this one. And then it kind of jumped from 10 to 12. I mean, all in all, I would probably consider this a pass. That's not really that bad. Still gonna try and clean that guy up a little bit. So now let's get to this guy. So on these 417Rs, this potentiometer here is always going to have some resistance on it because they've got a resistor hooked into here, into your incoming pin, and then running to what is going to be going out to your driver. So I can't read this here. What is that, 10 ohm? So that's a 10 ohm resistor they've got jumpered across there. Let's see what we get. So again, I'm gonna go hook to there, and my other one onto here. So we got about 5 ohms. What happens when, so which way are we turned here? Okay, I'm gonna turn all the way down. Max resistance, 10 ohms. So when this potentiometer is turned all the way down, it is putting 10 ohms of resistance on that rear tweeter, not 16, because we've got this resistor soldered in between. So what happens when we start turning it up? Oh boy. Yeah, see, here's a bad potentiometer. No, 10. Now that everything's all unhooked, let's test this. $16. And again, like I said before, no matter which way you turn this, it's going to be 16. So 15.6. And it's turning them down. It's not too bad. Kind of is a big jump there, slightly adjusting, but when you slowly go. So, kind of like I said before, this guy's a pass. Absolutely nothing wrong with this one. So that guy's good, we'll put that aside. We got this jumpered across here, so I am going to cut that. And make sure that that's not making a connection just while we test this one. I can always solder that back together. So now I'm turned all the way to the left and past that little click. Yeah. Oh, I got these the other way. See, if you hooked, if I soldered the wires to the wrong terminals, that's gonna be backwards. We got 16 ohms resistance, and then I'll turn all the way to the left, open circuit. So that's shutting it right off. Okay, we got 16. Let's slowly start turning it up. We already know this one is pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with how this one's reacting. It's, like I said, it's not 100%, but pretty darn good. You would never hear those little imperfections anyways. So yeah, turned all the way to the right, only 0.1, so yeah, 0 resistance. And then all the way down, gets you to your 15.7, 15.8, we'll call it 16, and then click, shut off. Like I always do with every one, I connect the two outsides and just see what we got. 16 ohms. So there we go. And I'll hook to here. And let's turn it all the way. So it's turned all the way counterclockwise. We got open, but here's the problem. Give this a wiggle. See how I'm getting. I'm just kind of putting pressure side to side on. Okay, so first click up, this should go to 16 ohms. And it doesn't. We're given 26. So I already know there's an issue with this. So see what happens when we start turning it. See, I'm turning it slowly, and you should see those numbers drop slowly, and it's jumping everywhere. Even when it does go back to the lower setting, like I let go. So now we're at 13. So it's gonna jump all over the place as you're turning it, and then I let go, and then it's gonna kind of go where it should. But that tells me this is pretty dirty or corroded. You should never have this much resistance in it. And I turned it a little bit more. See, I was at, what was that, 10, 13? And I've turned it up, so it should have dropped lower, and now it's higher. So we're just kind of, it's a little all over the place, this one. And I'm gonna turn it all the way up. So now I'm turned all the way clockwise, and now we've got no connection, open. And I give it a wiggle. Now it's sitting, it wants to sit at 32. So this is 100% going to affect the sound of that rear tweeter. So this needs to be cleaned. So I like to use D5 deoxit. So this is good to be used on basically any of the internal electrical connections, switches, pots, all that stuff. It's a really good cleaner. It does have a little bit of lubricity to it. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of greasy. This works really good for cleaning those things up. Not only do I like to use that, I also like to use this deoxit, this F5, so it's a fader lube. So this is specifically made for faders, and works good for potentiometers and stuff like that too. I feel like, and I actually was told from a tech that it does a much better job protecting those internal connections. So I'm gonna use this stuff first. As I'm doing that, I like to, and then I'm just going to turn this guy back and forth. I'm actually going to hit it again. I'll do this a couple times just to make sure. So after I do that a couple times and work it back and forth so it feels nice in there, I want to either let it dry, or what I like to do, I'll take it over to my other workbench there and hit it with some compressed air and kind of get any of the dirt and stuff that it's cleaned out of there. I want to shoot it and get it right out of there so it's not going to cause any kind of bad connection inside. And then after it's been dry and I blew it all out with compressed air, I'm going to use the fader lube. Now this stuff I try not to get all over the place. This has definitely got a little more kind of a greasiness to it. This the D5 does as well, but I think this is a little bit better even. So I'm going to get this in here. That's all done now. It definitely feels a lot better. Let's see if it did anything at all, because sometimes this isn't always going to work, you guys. So sometimes it is just not going to do anything, and then you're just kind of hooped. So as always, I'm going to hook these up to outside. Make sure those aren't touching. Power on. There, we got our 15.8. So that's all good there. And then let's hop to here. So where are we at? 12. So that's turned all the way down. And it's still not doing much for us. So even though we cleaned that up, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately. So we could have a bad potentiometer here. Now we found out this one's good, and we found out that this one is no good. So what I'm going to be doing is switching. The one that I was using for the mid-range is this one I'm going to use for the rear tweeter, because there was a resistor joining these two pins together instead of just a wire, which we have no resistance in, or very little resistance in. That is the way it is designed, that you turn it all the way down and click. That's opening that circuit, but because that resistor was in between there, when you're shutting this right off, that is basically just allowing that resistor to put 10 ohm resistance across the circuit. So the mid-range had one of these in here, even though it didn't really need it. That's why they were joined. But I can easily use this one for that rear tweeter. And I do have some spares. And these are what I'm gonna be putting in there for the mid-range. I know these are good. And now this one was for the front tweeters. So we tested this one. I know this one's good, but just because there's a little bit, it's a little harder to clean this guy because it's fairly well sealed. I'm just gonna show you how I like to do it instead of trying to, sometimes I just try to get it into here, this little slot in here. Sometimes you can try to get it in there. So if you're trying to do this, and this is still wired into your crossover, you might be able to loosen the screw and be able to pull this potentiometer out of the plate a little bit, just so you can get in underneath here and try to spray some of that deoxit in there. That sometimes helps. But if they're really bad, that might not be enough to clean it up properly. So I'm just gonna show you a really easy way to do this so you can get in there a little better. So all I'm gonna do, if you see this outside housing here, is only held on by 2 tabs on this side and 2 tabs on this side. And this is all that's really holding that on there. So you don't wanna pull this right apart, because sometimes they'll just kind of, you'll have pieces everywhere, and then you'll be fighting trying to get everything put back together. We're not dismantling this by any means, so I'm just going to bend back these 2 tabs on one side, and that's enough to be able to kind of open it enough to get the end of that deoxit in there to spray in there and clean it up. But I'll show you guys right now. So what's really handy is these little hook and pick sets work really good for this. And I just try to get that there and pry that up a little bit, and try to do it without stabbing myself in the finger, which has happened before. Just like so. So you just want to get underneath there like this and just kind of bend it up a little bit. And we'll do the same with this guy. So now with those lifted up, I am able to kind of pry it open just a little bit, and be gentle when you're doing this. You don't need to open it right up. So what I'm gonna do is just gently kind of wedge my hook in there like so. So now, as you can see, I've got this in there, and I've opened it up. I'll go in here, opened it up enough to be able to get my deoxit in there. So I'm just gonna set this down. There, slide this out. I'm just gonna work that back and forth. couple times. I know this one's not bad, so I know it doesn't need a whole lot of attention. If it doesn't work at all and it really needs a good cleaning, then you might have to do this a couple times. Again, just work it back and forth. So you don't need a whole lot in there. Push it flat against it and then just kind of roll it forward just to get those tabs pushed back over, like so. And want to make sure that these are going to hold it down nice and tight. And again, you don't want to get too forceful with these when you're pulling them up, because some of these are pretty old and you don't want to snap those tabs off, because then you're fighting a whole different issue of trying to be sure that this rear housing on this pot is going to stay where it's at and be nice and snug on there. Okay, so even though this guy tested pretty good, it feels a lot better now. It's a lot easier to turn, not too loose, not tight. You can actually feel every little groove it goes over. So let's see what it's gonna do now. Nice and slow, turn it up. There, that is about as good as it's gonna get. There's no jumping around, nice smooth feel. Numbers climb up evenly. I like it. All right, so this is good to go. So that's kind of the way I like to test those things, especially if I've got them out of the crossover. Again, you can test them in the crossover, it's just fine. You might not get a full 16 ohms. It really all just depends on how your crossovers are hooked up. But till next time, Cerwin Vega, big or small, save them all.